Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Moshix mainframe channel. This is Moshix. Over the last 3, 4, maybe even 6 months, I've been playing a lot with this new generation of LLMs. Played a lot with the codecs on OpenAI, but also lately more with Claude. And and I wanted to find out. I've been writing some shell scripts, bash scripts, which it's very good at. I think it's also quite good at C. Maybe less good at I don't know about C++ or Go, but I haven't tried that. But maybe a little bit less with some of the older languages. And so today I wanted to find out how good it is with one of the oldest languages out there, COBOL. But I don't want to use any mainframe COBOL because obviously it's going to be easier to find ZOS related COBOL content out there on the web from which the models can learn. But rather, I wanted to go with something that's a bit more obscure, but it's still COBOL, and that's gnuCOBOL. gnuCOBOL is part of the GNU tool chain. It is a compiler that converts first to C and then compiles the C. So it's not a true compiler. But the C compiler, the new C compiler, GCC is an optimal is a great compiler, does great optimization. So I gave it a try. Already started doing some stuff here. So one of the things I'm doing, for instance, is I have a data set here, and as you can see here, and this is from an earlier project that I have done, a video that I've done on this channel showing um, how to process an input data set for salaries with COBOL, and then we use the same data set for an assembler program that did the payroll report. And I'll link to those two videos in the description below the video you're watching right now. And so it's the same data set. So we have an employee ID, then we have the name, and then we have a monthly salary. So there is, I don't know how many, it says here 113 entries. I only took part of it because it doesn't really, whether we have one or 10,000 doesn't really matter. And so as you can see here in this window, I have a Claude session going on that I gave it, I wrote the first few, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 lines just to give it a framework because I wasn't sure if Claude knew about GNU COBOL. So, and then I started to ask it different things. So for instance, if I go here to the history, um, uh, it's mostly, okay, so I'm using gnuCOBOL. I have an input data set in input.ds and search COBOL, which is the early program that I have provided it in COBOL, should allow for the user to search for a name and then show salary and employee ID. However, F3 should exit the program and the search screen should use callers in a coherent way. Because my first incarnation didn't use callers, and you needed to terminate the program by nuking it with Control C. So I told here to use F3. And I really didn't know how to use function keys in gnuCOBOL. So that's something that I really wouldn't have known how to do. And it's difficult to find example programs that do this kind of stuff in on the web out there. And then I wanted it all to be like a CICS or a KICS application. So you have a mask, etc. So let me show you the program as it looks right now. You start it, and then you look for, let's say, Mars. I know there's an employee called Mars, and then it finds it. Now I can also just do M, and then it finds 41 matches, as you can see here, and then I can use F8 and F7 to do that. Now I wouldn't have known how to do that because I really don't know how to handle AID or attention keys in gnuCOBOL, but there is a way to do it. So let's see how it handles it. So you can see here, we tell it that it's free-flowing source, which you can tell this is like a meta information for the compiler. And and then we give it here the input data set, which is sequential, so that's correct. And I think that I actually had provided that already in my original. And then we have some colors. We define colors which have a numeric value. And these are the typical mainframe colors. So black, blue, green, cyan, red. Well, it should be pink, yellow, and white, not magenta. But that's what this is already something that comes from Claude. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily know that on the mainframe we say pink and not magenta, but that's okay. And then um, okay, so it looks like it limits it to 200 entries found. So that's already a limitation. So we'll have to look into it later. Let's see. I'm pretty sure that Claude knows how to fix that. For me, it's interesting to find out how Claude learns to do, for instance, maps and screens for gnuCOBOL, because there's very little information out there. Because I know that if I tell it to make it 400, or I can even just do it manually. But so here we define a screen. So screen section, that's the important part. So here we define a screen. Basically, that would be a Kix map if we were using Kix. And by the way, you could also use gnuCOBOL with SQLite. In fact, I have written, I think it's here. Yeah, so I have here a little mapper or wrapper that it can be called from gnuCOBOL with the SQL command, and then it passes it on to the SQL binary. So very simple. Let's go back. And I did write some SQLite programs with gnuCOBOL, so it works perfectly. It's fast. Everything is fast when you run it on Linux, on any modern machine. You don't really have to worry too much about performance, even when you have millions or hundreds of millions of records. Everything is fast enough. So here is the screen that we're looking at. Um, so uh, the foreground color. So here we have the foreground color and the background color. That's interesting. So first we have a blank screen. Background color is black. Foreground color is typically white. But then we can have for each field, we can specify a different color. And again, I wouldn't have known how to do that. Um, but Claude knew somehow. Really surprised how he finds out all this stuff. Um, okay, so, and then it produces a result screen, which is what you're seeing here in this terminal window here. And now let's see. I want to tell it now to to give me a selector field to the left of every employee entry, so that I can then press E to edit it. So let's see how we would do it. First of all, let me just make a backup of this. Copy, sir, because it overwrites. I could just do a GitHub, but repository, I don't want to do that. Backup, search, cob. Okay. So, and now we tell it um, when you show the results page with employees, I want a single byte selector field to the left of each employee row. And if the user then types an E or E in that selector field, a new screen comes up to edit the salary. There should be some plausibility check for the salary. It can't be more than, well, we work in the real economy here. I'm not a, yeah, we don't work in Wall Street. So let's say can't be more than 15,000 per month and not less, I don't know what minimum wages are, but let's say not less than 900 per month. The new salary shall be updated in the input yes dataset and confirmed to the user. Um, use colors in a coherent manner. Let's see what it does. So this is interesting. Um, the good thing is you can see here what it does as it changes things. So you sometimes can still, when you see it's going the wrong way, you can stop it. I should have gone to planning mode, but I didn't anyway. So I know you can say use agents, but I don't know if that's gonna. I'm not that great good yet with this Claude thing or the OpenAI thing. I'm learning, but it's highly interesting just to see what it's able to do here. It's fascinating. And so um, one thing that I was thinking of doing is uh, rewriting my 32.7 BBS with gnuCOBOL and and uh, and then sockets and SQLite as the database, and see how far we can get using Claude. But I'm a little bit worried about how much it's going to cost, so I'm not doing that for now. But it would have been an interesting experience to do that. Um, I don't know, maybe one day we'll make a video about that and just maybe implement certain parts of the 3270 BBS, such as such as maybe the chat or scrolling, going through the topics that are in the 3270 BBS. That could be an idea. So it's taken it a while here, so maybe I'll just pause the video and resume when we have first answers so that you don't have to wait for this. So for you, it's going to be just 1 or 2 seconds. So let's see how long it really takes. So we are at 2 minutes thinking now. So let's see how long it takes. So after about a minute and a half or so, it's still thinking, as you can see here. It's quite slow, and I don't know exactly which model I'm using here. Not, I don't know how to check that. But in the meantime, let's go look at this idea of creating a gnuCOBOL 3270 BBS. So let's, what I meant is if we go in here and we access so maybe I could just do this first part where we can see all the topics and browse the topics, F8, F7, look at every response. Um, something like that, or maybe we just do the chat um, that we have here in 3270 BBS. So either one of those would be a good idea. Well, maybe I have a long flight coming up just in a few days over the Atlantic Ocean, so maybe I'll play with that. Even though actually, now that I think about it, Claude needs an internet connection. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just see how far I can get without the internet connection during the flight. I don't know. Could be a fun idea. Um, but as you can see here, it's still thinking after what, almost 5 minutes. I don't know why it takes so long to think. What I like is that it tries the compilation, so I'm really pleased by that. So not only it makes changes, then it compiles to check if it compiles cleanly. So that's and then it tells you what it did, so you can really follow. No, it's still thinking. So let's come back again when it's done thinking. Okay, so after what, 12 minutes, it finally came back, but it did quite a lot of stuff. So no developer could ever um, could ever do all this in 12 minutes. That's what I'm sure, and I couldn't do it. So why don't we try out what happened here? Did it compile? Yes, it actually even did the compilation. So we only have to restart. And so let's see what happens. Oh yeah, it put in the selector field, Dave Schulman, and I can put it here now at 1,000, 10,000. Let's increase the salary. Salary updated successfully. uh, that's great. There is one selector field here that doesn't make any sense. Can we get this fixed? I don't know how to tell it, but there is a selector field for an empty row at the very end of the list. We only show a selector field if there's an actual content row, not just an empty row. But I think we're getting there. I mean, this looks almost like a kicks transaction. Um, this could be better columnized here. The function key and action key legend at the bottom of the screen needs to be properly tabularized and in organized columns. Maybe we'll take a screenshot to tell it so it knows what we're talking about. And then we put it here. Okay, so this is actually quite impressive. I mean, it compiles cob. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's a much better COBOL programmer than I am. But let's look at the um, cob. Uh, let's see what it did here. Oh, so this is the screen. Oh, okay. So this is the screen now with the selector field. Uh, yeah. So this is the screen that we're seeing up here in this terminal. And then there's an edit screen. So here, this is the edit screen. So if I put in here an E, now this is the, as you can see here, edit salary. It's actually quite simple. COBOL is at the, it can be a very difficult language, but also a very simple language. It's very similar to assembly. So it's a very direct language because I want to say almost every line of code is almost like an assembly line of code if you use macros, but it's not like Python or Perl or C++ where one line equals. I saw something about hello world in Java is about 500 million instructions. So yeah, and now it's been thinking again for 2 minutes or so. Um, let's see what it comes back with and if it fixes all these issues. Um, let's let it work a little bit. Let's come back in a few seconds, in a few minutes. Okay, and we're back. So after how long this did? Oh, okay. So after almost 8 minutes, it made a few small changes. Let's see what it did. Hmm. So I put the columnized. So let's see if it actually works. Yes. So it understood. I mean, I'm still quite mesmerized. It understood exactly what I meant. I really just only. Let's see what I told it. The function keys and action keys legend in the bottom. I mean, it's really amazing. um, I can't get over it. And it fixed the dangling um, action key there. It came out with this color scheme on its own. Um, I think it's amazing. I mean, if we asked an experienced new COBOL developer to develop this application, it would probably take him to do it like this. Uh, for an experienced person, I want to say a full day. For a not so experienced person, 2 or 3 days. And then there would still be back and forth, and that would have to be available when the person comes in and says, "Hey, I did it," and I said, "Well, you have to tabularize the function key legend," and then they go back. So, and there's always some time lost because the person may be ready, but then I'm not ready to look at it, and so it is a bit sad that now the LLM is the developer and I'm the QA person. And so there's going to be lots of people who prefer to be the developer and not the QA person. But there's also a lot of people who say, well, I'm getting an application done in a 20th of the time it would take an experienced developer to do it. So I'm happy with that. It's a dawn of a new era, and I don't know where this is going to lead, but I don't know if this code could be optimized. Probably. Um, we could probably do functions for a lot of things here, but it works. And if I have to change it, I don't need to go call the person who wrote it. I can just ask the LLM to change it, and it doesn't matter who wrote it. Um, it's really quite amazing. So for me, this is something special, and I intend to use it more for the mainframe stuff I'm doing. As I said, one idea I have is have um, to have this also rewrite basically a part of the 3270 BBS for in gnuCOBOL. So I don't even know if it's possible. Can gnuCOBOL handle TCP sockets? Yes. So then the whole thing can be rewritten because right now 3270 BBS is written in Go. Maybe I don't know. It's time to redo this in gnuCOBOL using an LLM. I don't know how it can deal with a more complex application. This I don't know. This screen here, which is kind of a delta, I call it deltamon. It's like the omegamon, which measures the performance. That's a challenging screen to write. And Matthew Wilson, the person who developed the Go 3270 library, knows how much I worked on getting this to work right. With updating colors, the trend lines inside of all of it. There's a lot of stuff in here. And so, yes, it was slow and I had to learn a lot. And I don't know if an LLM can even learn it all. So maybe I'll take on this project maybe during the summer and rewriting the 3270 BBS all in gnuCOBOL and make it kind of like a Kix application, transactional with SQLite access. Could be fun. Anyway, so I learned a lot in using this LLM for something as uncommon as COBOL, and then some even more so something as uncommon as gnuCOBOL. And I'm impressed. I hope you're impressed too. And why don't you let me know what kind of project you're working on with this LLM thing, and what the most surprising thing is that you've seen in working with LLM with weird or uncommon languages. Anyway, this was a short video. Thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye.